It's amazing. Before we know it, we'll be finished this difficult Masechta, finishing another parak tonight. We are sponsored in our trip through this Masechta by Mark Franco for the safety, security, and success of the IDF. By Dr. Block, Lili Nishmas Doidi Mori, Mordechai Ben Yisrael, and by Yisrael Fisher, Lili Nishmas Avram Ben Yosef Gross, the Neshama should have an Aliyah. We do have in Yitz Hashem information about the Siyam. We will have a Siyam Be'ezus Hashem a week from Thursday. A week from Thursday, there will be a Siyam on Seder Nezikin, and the whole kit and caboodle. And that will be, thinking we should make it 5:45? Yeah.
6 o'clock.
Okay, 5:45 Siyam. Again, I'm going to be announcing this now a little bit ad nauseum, but we're going to have a late start on Sunday night. Sunday night shir will start at 8:40. It's a one-time thing because my brother is making a wedding. He's marrying off his daughter, my brother Yisrael, and compounding that, we're having Rav Yerucham Olshin coming to our shul at 6 o'clock. So I'm going to be working on a very, very tight schedule. He's coming to congratulate us on finishing a year of our Adapter Kollel program, and the entire community is invited to join us at 6 p.m. here in the shul, men and women, for an address before Rosh Hashanah by Rabbi Yerucham. Next Tuesday, we're going to start Masechta Zvachim. You want to bring your friend, your cousin, your brother-in-law, and even your father-in-law to come and join us.
I'll bring my father-in-law.
Yeah, Mi'etz Hashem, you should be zeicha l'kach. Okay, we... Irving, you could tell Irving, is Irving here? Yeah, Irving. See, I'm using this. Irving used to bring it to me Sunday morning. If I'm using this, it means that I need it. Irving used to bring me Sunday morning J&J and then many nights a Pepsi. Okay. Says the new Mishnah on the bottom of Ches Amud Beis. So remember, we said that there are 3 Averis. We need somebody good over here. Barry is here. 3 Averis that have a carbon ola v'yored, which is a variable chatas. If a person's wealthy, he brings an animal. If not, he brings 2 birds. If not, he brings a mincha, a meal offering. So these are brought for sins where Barry was administered an oath about testimony, or where Barry made a false oath, or where Barry entered into the Mikdash or ate kachim while he was tamei. Now, ein chayovin al shmias kel val bitas v'sayim val tumas mikdash kedoshev. The court. This is the parak is talking about. The Masechta is talking about the court. So therefore, this is done almost anonymously. The court is not chayav for these 3 because they are of a variable chatas, and the court only brings a parhelim davashel tzibur for an erroneous psak about something that has a chatas kavua. V'anosi kiyotze behem, and the same thing is true for the king. The king doesn't bring a offering for these sins. Divrei Rabbi Yossi Haglili. Rabbi Akiva Omer Hanasi Chayev Bekulan. The Nasi would be Chayev in a case of Tumas Mikdash U'Kedosha, or in a case of a false oath, Chutz Mishmias HaKol, except for the oath administered about testimony, because a king doesn't give testimony. As the Gemara will say, Sha'melech lo don v'lo don in Isai, the king does not judge, nor is judged. Now the reason is he's not judged is because at the time of Yanai HaMelech, where the king was judged, it turned out to be a massacre of the Talmidei Chachamim. The king is also doesn't judge, because anybody that's not judged can't judge others. The king doesn't give testimony because it's not appropriate for the king to have to stand up in front of Dayanim that are sitting in the dock, and he's not testified against because he's not judged, and if he's not judged, there's no purpose of testifying against him. So therefore, since a king doesn't give testimony, it's not possible to have the korban for the oath of testimony. Yeah.
Aren't the Chachamim being Eicher something from the Torah with that takana?
That's Shaval Tasa, it's not a problem. Now, Amar Ula, my time in Rabbi Yossi Aglili. What's the reason of Rabbi Yossi Aglili that there's no variable chatas by the king? Says the Gemara, Amar Krov Ahoye Ki Yesham La'achas Me'eleh. If he's guilty for any one of these, Kol Shemischayev Ba'achas Mischayev B'kulan. If he's chayiv any one of them, he's chayiv in there with all of them. V'she'ein mischayev ba'achas, if he's not chayiv with one of them, and we already said that the king can't be chayiv about the oath about testimony because he doesn't give testimony, ein mischayev b'kulan. Therefore, he's not chayiv in any of them. Says the Gemara, but how do you know when it says v'hoya ki yeshem la'achas, it means that if he's guilty of any one of them, maybe it means if he's guilty of one of them, even if he's not guilty of the others, he could bring a korban out of Yared, even if he's not liable for the others. If he's chayiv in any one of them, but for the ones that he is chayiv, he does have to bring a korban. So therefore, this pasuk is not conclusive. So it's a question: how do you read la'achas me'ela, if it means that he has to be guilty of any one, or if it's one of them? So says the Gemara, Ella Taimed Rabbi Yossi Aglili Mehacha. The Tanya Yirmiyah Aimer Nemar. It says by the variable chatis, if lo sagia yadai. If he can't afford an animal, then he brings bird offerings. And if he can't afford bird offerings, then he brings a meal offering. Now, therefore, it has to be possible that we're talking about somebody that might be in dire straits. That implies that this variable chatis is only someone who could have a fluctuation in his fiscal situation. Yatsa Nasi Mashiach, that excludes the king and the Kohen Gadol. Shein Boin L'De'anias, they don't have such a fluctuation. Nasi, Dichsiv V'Asa Mikol Mitzvahs Hashem Alikov. When talking about the Nasi, it says if he did any of the mitzvahs of Hashem Alikov. Now, it just could have said, V'asa achas mikol mitzvahs. We know whose mitzvahs. We're not talking about the mitzvahs of the Pope, chas v'shalom, right? So why does it have to say Hashem Elikov? It's telling us that this is not a prince of a shevet, but the king of Klal Yisrael, that only has on top of him Hashem. Mi she'ein al gabav el Hashem Elikov. So says the Gemara, now, since we're talking about the king, since the king has power of taxation, since the king has the power to tax, he's never going to be poor. And also he has the coffers of Klal Yisrael. Mashiach, the Kohen Gadol, Because it says about the Kohen Gadol, V'Kohen HaGadol Me'achiv, the Kohen who's greater than his brothers, Shahu Gadol Me'achiv B'noi, he's handsome, B'Koyach, he's strong, B'Chachma, he's wise, B'Oisher, and wealthy. So it's a feature of the Kohen Gadol that he has to be wealthy. Others say, well, the way we know it is Menayin Shem Ein Lo Gadleim Mishalachav. How do we know that if the Kohen Gadol who they decide is the most pious person is poor, how do we know that we enrich him from his brothers? The Kohen who's great from his brothers, what we pour on his head, the Shemen HaMishcha, Gadleu Me'echav. We make sure if he doesn't have money, we give him money. Here's an interesting shaila. If a king becomes a leper, while he's a leper, he's deposed from his office. What happens if while he becomes a leper, he enters in the mikdash while tameh? Do we say that since right now he's not in his office of king, so he has to bring the carbon? Or since he still has the title of king, maybe he doesn't bring it. So the Gemara says, a nasi that becomes a leper, mahu. Do we say mitchadachi? Do we say that he's pushed aside completely from this carbon? I mifter potter, or do we say that when he is in office he's potter, but if not, he's chayiv? I imagine the Rishonim will learn it. Some Rishonim will learn it in the reverse, but I believe that's the way the Mefarish over here learns. Now, so the Gemara answers straight out, definitively, and it says that since the idea is he can't be poor, even when he gets leprosy, he's not poor. As the Gemara says, Amalei, he answered him, Diloch oy de Gaza. Where's the money coming from? From your pocket or from the king's coffers? It's coming from the king's coffers, and therefore, since it's not possible that he won't be able to afford, so the variable chatas does not apply to him. Tanya, we learned in a brisa. Let's welcome in people over here. I'm not being very hospitable. Okay. Now, Tanya, Rabbi Akiva says, Mashiach potter mikulan. The Kohen Gadol is potter from all three, from Shuas Ha'edas, Shuas Bitoy, and for Tumas Mikdash U'Kedosha. So the Gemara wants to know what's the reason of Rabbi Akiva. Amar Rava, my time at Rabbi Akiva. Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Zeh Karban Aaron Ubanav. There is a special mincha that the Kohen Gadol brings every day called the Minchas Chavitin, or the Minchas Kohen Gadol, where 6 loaves are offered in the morning, 6 loaves are offered in the afternoon. And this is the only mincha that the Kohen Gadol must bring, because we learn it out from Zeh. Zeh is a miyat. Zuba chayvelai. This comes as a requirement. Ve'ein acheres ba chayvelai. There is no other requirement of a mincha for the Kohen Gadol. Now, if he would be chayiv in a carbon oil of a yared, so then there would be technically a mincha that he would be chayiv if he was a dalei dalam. If he was very poor, he would have to bring the mincha for the carbon oil of a yared. Says the Gemara, well, maybe it's just saying that the Kohen Gadol never brings the carbon of dalei dalam. The Ema, fact the Gemara, Kima Ma'it Le'Rachmana Midalei Dalas, that he doesn't bring the mincha for these Averis. Oh, my new asiris ha'efa, avalanias v'ashiris, the bird offerings or the animal lo yamate rachmana. Says we can't think that we go part way. Don't even think that. Shelley and Irving, let me just be ma'ir that you should already put on the chat that Shear's Sunday night is 8:40, so that I'll be able to get back. I'm not staying my brother's wedding. I'm going to miss the Kabbalah's Panim, and I'm going to miss afterwards, but I want to make sure at least that I'm by the chuppah. So anyway, says the Gemara, Lo yisol gedaita. Don't think that the Kohen Gadol could be piecemeal. That he's chayiv for Shavuos Bitui, for Shavuos Ha'edus, for Tumas Mikdash HaKadosh, for the rich, or the bird offerings, but not for the mincha. Dichsev v'chipur alav ha'kohen al chatosai asher chata me'achas me'ela. And the kohen will atone from when he brings the offering from one of these types. Ha-miskaper ba'achas, miskaper b'kulam. If one could use one of them, he could atone for all of them. V'she'ena miskaper ba'achas, but if he's precluded even from one, ein miskaper b'kulam. So here we're saying that when it says v'chipur of a kohen al chatasa asher chotay me'achas me'ela, it means that it has to be from each and every one. So the Gemara says, El mi'ata dichsiv v'hoya ki yesham la'achas me'ela, if he will be guilty for one of these things, hachanami dekala mischayev ba'achas. Now, here it's talking about the different crimes, the carbon oil of a yared, the different crimes, the Thomas Mikdash HaKadosh, the false oath of utterance, the oath of testimony, and it says if he's guilty for one of these. Now, according to you, it means that he has to be for each and every one. Whoever is chayiv for every one of them is chayiv for all of them. But we know that that's not the case, because Rabbi Akiva says that the king cannot be chayiv for an oath of testimony, because the king, as we explained, doesn't give testimony. But Rabbi Akiva says he's chayiv for the other ones. It says Gemara, Alama Tanan, Rabbi Akiva, I'm a nasi chayiv chutz mishmiyas kol, that the nasi is chayiv for everything except for shmiyas kol. So here, when it says ki yesham la'achas me'ela, it means for any one of them, and not that it has to be for everyone. Says the Gemara, Abayu v'Rav Dimrei Trevayu, me'achas mashmalei. Me'achas implies each and every one. La'achas loy mashmalei. La'achas doesn't imply that it has to be each and every one. So the Gemara says, why is it different? U'mayishna me'achas the mashmalei, it's because the me'achas is written the kasvei rachmana lebesayf, because it writes it by the mincha. Why does it write it by the mincha? It's coming to tell you that the Kohen Gadol that can't be chayiv for the mincha, for the poorest carbon, because by the minchas chavitin it says zeh, which implies only the, that's the only mincha is chayiv. So over there, me'achas is meant to say only if he could do all of them. The kasir rachmana lebesoif gabe asira se'efa by the dalei dalan. The kol the mechayev asira se'efa mechayev bekulan. If you could bring that carbon, you could bring them all. The Kohen Mashiach, who can't bring the Dali down because he can't be chayiv in any other mincha but the minchas chavitim because it says there, the Yisrael G'daitim Mischayev Ba'achas. It means any one of them, Afal Pishen Mischayev B'kulan. Then why does it wait to say Me'achas all the way at the end? Nichtav Elahai Me'achas Me'ela either B'dalas, by the bird offering, Inami Ba'ashiris, or by the animal. The fact that it puts it all the way at the end is coming to preclude that, coming to exclude, preclude. It's coming to exclude that the Kohen Gadol, who is not going to be chayiv if it's dalei dalas, because he can't be chayiv a mincha except for the minchas chavitin. Therefore, he doesn't bring a carbon oil of a yared by any of them. Okay, just getting underway on what is a very difficult trip. We want to welcome in Saba and Yaakov Warman, Dr. Guy, Irving Fishman, Berish Gesselman, A.B. Spry, Baruch Ian, Yitzi Fuchs, Shimon Klein, Barry Cement, Pesach Sigelman. Boy, Pesach, is it good to have you. Ruvain Palak, Yisrael Fishman, Nachmi Mansky. Avigdor is back. Avigdor was missing. Rebellia, we missed you at Mincha today. Shelley Zeitlin. I think it looks like Rebellia is in a spaceship somewhere. Mo Kushner, how's your wife, Mo?
Hashem, she's breaking bones, got stitches.
Yeah, you know, Mo, you got to be more careful how you treat her. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Thank you, Rabbi, for the
Yeah. Mark Frankel, Michal, and Avigdor, Stephen Holtzman, Moshe Lehman, Rabbi Kranz, Yitzi Muller, Nachman Chapler, Abe Arbach, Ilya Schutman, Richard Rosenzweig. Here in the shul, we have Ruvain Shannon, Danny Vogel, Michael Avram, Chaim Kramer, Gedalia Engel, and myself. So we're getting there. We are working towards having a minyan here in the shul. We're going to really try to, I said that ice cream sundaes is the way to go, I think. That's going to be, yeah.
Why does Torah refer to a king as a nasi?
Well, a Nasi is a leader. It is a leader. Now, a Nasi is also a leader of a Shevet. So that's why it says Hashem Elokov, to say that it's the leader of Klal Yisrael. But the word Nasi is Nasius, is the one that's elevated.
I wanted to tell the Rav, we're going back to Yisrael, Mr. Hashem. Sunday's a Bikachon breakfast in Staten Island, and the next day, Mr. Hashem, we're on a flight back home.
Well, you should have a safe trip. We're going to miss you terribly, terribly. But when you get up early, you know where to come.
Okay, I will believe that.
When are you coming back? You don't know.
We have to come back in November for certain reasons, for a short period of time, and then back. In other words,
all right, we'll expect you in November.
Okay.
We expect you, unless we all join you there sooner.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
With gesund, everybody.
Amen. Okay. Now, says the Mishnah. And remember, Rabbi said tonight, after we have the daf, we will have the Chumash here. Very special Chumash here tonight. Very, very interesting stuff. So if you don't have to go to the races or anything like that, you're more than welcome to join us. Shelley, I've had no communications now for a month with Aaron Swade. I have to try to get a hold of Aaron Swade. And I don't know why Marshall is playing hooky.
I'll try and come tomorrow.
Yeah, Eddie Chazan is now back in Eretz Yisrael. A shout out to Eddie Chazan. Okay.
Marshall said he had some family things to take care of. We'll be back on tomorrow night.
Okay. All right. Imagine Marshall tells Barry. It's really scraping the bottom of the barrel, I'm telling you. You know what you get when you put a Marshall together with a Barry. You get marked.
Takes one to know one.
Okay. Kol HaMitzvah Shabbatayra, this is a really nice summary now. Kol HaMitzvah Shabbatayra Shechayavan Al Zdayin Karas Val Shig Gas and Chatas, where you're chayiv if you did it willfully Karas and in error Chatas. HaYochid Mevi Kizbu Usira, this is a regular garden variety Chatas, which you bring, let's say a man was Mechal Shabbos B'Shoigeg, ate Chayil of Dam, slept with a sister, did one of the 36 Isurik Karas, he brings either a female sheep or a female goat. Vanasi, if the king did it, he brings a sar, a he-goat. Or Mashiach and Bezdin, when it is with an erroneous psak, mevian par. Ubavidis kechavim, when it comes to idolatry, hayochid vanasi vamashiach, the individual, the nasi, and the kay Mashiach mevian seira brings a she-goat, or Bezdin, and the Bezdin, where they issue an erroneous psak, brings a par visar, a bull and a he-goat, par la'ila, a bull for an ayla, sar l'chatas. Oshim tali, what about the case of an oshim tali, where a person is not sure whether he did the chatas? Ha-yachid v'anasi, the yachid and the king is chayavin, or Mashiach u Bezdin petur. Mashiach, the kay Mashiach, and Bezdin are exempt. Oshim vadai, an Oshim Vadai, there are actually 5 cases where we bring an Oshim. One of the easiest to explain is the Oshim that is brought for trespass of Hektish, where you benefit from Hektish unwittingly, a Shava Pruta. HaYochid v'Anasi v'Mashiach Hayavim. The Yochid, the king, and the Kay Mashiach are going to be Chayav for a garden variety Oshim. Or Bezdin Peturin. Now, what we just talked about, what about the variable chatas? Al shmias hakol val bitis asayim val tumas mikdash and for an oath about testimony, for a false oath of utterance, and for entering in the mikdash or eating kachim b'tumah, bezdin peturin, because there's no parhelm davishal tzibur except for a sin of a chatas kavua. Vayachid vanasi vamashiach chayavin. The Yachid, the Nasi, and the Kay Mashiach are Chayiv. Ela she'en Kayin Gadol, and Mashiach Chayiv al Tumas Mikdash u'Kedosha. Except that the Kayin Gadol and the Mashiach are not Chayiv for the case of Tumas Mikdash u'Kedosha, and we'll see about the Mashiach. Obviously, can't. She'en Kain Gadol Mashiach, the Kain Gadol that's anointed, is not chayav for Tumas Mikdash u'Kedoshav. We'll see, because he receives on Yom Kippur his atonement for Tumah, not from the twin goats, but from the par Kain Gadol of Yom Kippur, Divrei Reb Shimon. Or Mahein Mavian, in the case of the Tumas Mikdash u'Kedoshav, what do they bring? A carbon oil of Yerid, the variable chatas. Rebbe Eliezer says, Hanasi, the king, may be sar, brings a sar. Obviously, the king is not going to bring a sar for the din of Shavuos HaEdus, because he can't bring for Shavuos HaEdus, because he doesn't give testimony. Now, this was a nice wrap-up. Reb Shimon has his own wrap-up. Tanya, Rabbi Shimon ha'yanoisen klal. Reb Shimon would give the following principle. And by the way, I just want to assure you that if you're finding this Gemara hard, if you're finding this Gemara hard, you're completely normal. You're completely normal. If you're finding it easy, you're a little bit weird. But if you
normal, the Rav is saying I'm normal. Amazing.
If you're finding it very hard,
Barry.
Now,
Hello, Barry.
Tanya, there's always one in the crowd, always one.
We had the word Kohen Gadol Mashiach for the first time.
Yeah, that's what was like. I wonder if they changed the gears. Tanya, Reb Shimon Yonoisen Kla. Reb Shimon gave the following principle: Kol she'ayochid ba'oshim tali, where an individual brings an ashim tali. An ashim tali is, let's say, Barry eats a piece of meat. He's not sure if it was chaylev or if it was satmer. If it was chaylev, he bring a chatas. Since he's not sure, he brings an ashim tali. So whenever a yochid brings an ashim tali, hayoytze kayotze bay, hanasi kayotze bay. The king does the same. Mashiach hu bezdin, but the Kohen Mashiach and the bezdin are peturin. The koshu ba'oshim vaday, like for Me'ilah, Nasi u Mashiach kayotze b'hem, both the king and the Kohen Mashiach bring an ashim, u bezdin peturin. Now what about the variable chatas? Or Shmias HaKol, the oath of testimony, Bitis Vasayim, the oath of utterance, with Tumas Mikdash Kedoshev, Bezdin Peturin. Bezdin doesn't bring, because Bezdin only brings for an erroneous psak on something relating to a chatas kavua, a fixed chatas. Nasi or Mashiach Chayovin, but the Nasi obviously is not chayav for everything. The Nasi doesn't bring for the case of Shavuos Ha'edus, Elashena Nasi chayav b'Shmias HaKol, because he doesn't he doesn't give testimony. V'loy Mashiach b'tumas mikdash u'kedosha, because I told you that the Kohen receives his kapara on Yom Kippur from a different carbon, and therefore he doesn't have the carbon oil of Yared for tumas mikdash u'kedosha. Kol shehu ba'oil of Yared, anything that's a variable chatas, Nasi kayotze bay, the Nasi also brings it. Mashiach u bezdin peturin. The Mashiach and bezdin are patur. Now that's a stira. We just said that whatever is Shmias Kol Bitis Vasayim Tumas Mikdash Kedoshev, the Mashiach is chayiv except for Tumas Mikdash Kedoshev. And now it says the Mashiach is patur. So the Gemara says, "Hold good for kasha." There's an internal contradiction over here. Amar Tashem Mashiach chayiv b'tumas mikdash u'kedoshev. Only that part, but Shmias Kol and Bitis Vasayim, he would be chayiv. B'tumas mikdash u'kedoshev would depart out. But Shmias Kol Bitis Vasayim chayiv. Aim a sefer. Then it says in the sefer, Kol shu ba'il v'yarid Nasi kayotze bay. The Nasi is chayiv, but Mashiach bezdin peturin. Here it says Katani Mashiach bezdin peturin for all three. Ma bezdin peturin mekulan, just like bezdin is patur from all of them. Mashiach patur mekulan. So therefore, brace yourself, Mark. Therefore, kashin adadi. I'm sorry, Mark. I know it's a problem that the Amid bases are not big enough for Mark. But don't worry, Mark. We're gonna get some big Amid bases. Don't worry. So the Gemara answer is very simple. The Gemara says yes. If it's the carbon dalei dalim, the mincha, there the Mashiach is never chayiv the mincha, because like we said, he can't be chayiv a mincha because the only mincha he's chayiv in is from the miyat of zeh is only the minchas machbas that he brings every day. So I'm Rav Hun Breid Reb Yeshua like kasha kam bedalei dalas. Reb Shimon Savala Rabbi Kiva b'chada. He holds like Reb Kiva in one area, or Poligalei b'chada. Savar like Rabbi Kiva b'dalei dalas, that the Kohen Gadol could never be chayiv in the mincha because there's a miyat of zeh, the pater. Or Poligalei b'dalas, but unlike Rabbi Akiva who says that since the Kohen Gadol can't be chayiv in the Dali Dalas, he's not chayiv in them at all. He holds that they're just parted from the carbon Dali Dalas. The Kohen Gadol is just parted from the carbon of Dali Dalas, but he is chayiv in the carbon of Dalas in the bird offerings or in the animal. Now the Mishnah says, "El she'en Kohen Gadol chayiv," that the Kohen Gadol is not chayiv for tumas mikdash u'kedoshev. Because Amar Chizkiah, my time in Reb Shimon, why does he hold that the Kohen Gadol, if he did the sin of Tumas Mikdash or Kedosh, entering the Mikdash while Tomei, or eating kachim while Tomei, why is he not Chayiv? And this soul is cut off from the congregation. One whose carbon is the same as the congregation. This could be compared this excludes the Kohen Gadol, whose carbon is not the same as the congregation. Now the Gemara assumes this to mean because the congregation, when they do a sin, they're chayiv a kizbah or a seira, while the Kohen Gadol, if he does a sin with an erroneous psak, he's chayiv a par. So it says Gemara Imkei Nasi Nami ain't korban hashava l'kol. The Nasi doesn't bring a kizbah seira, the Nasi brings a sawyer. So then he should be exempt from the carbon oil of Yared as for Tumas Mikdash and Kedoshim as well. Says the Gemara, yeah, but the Nasi is Shava b'kapara the Yom HaKippurim. The Nasi has the same kapara as the Tzibur on Yom Kippur. The Nasi is also atoned by the twin goats. Says the Gemara, Im Ken Kohanim Nami Lo Shava L'Kol B'Kapara Yom HaKippurim. It's not just the Kohen Mashiach. The garden variety Kohen also doesn't receive kapara for Tumas Mikdash or Kedoshim on Yom Kippur from the two Serim. He receives it from the Par Kohen Gadol, and therefore he also shouldn't be exempt from the variable Chattas. Says the Gemara, no, because the other Kahanim are Shava L'Kol B'Shah Mitzvahs D'Shana Kula. Says the Gemara, but Mashiach Nami HaShava B'Shah Mitzvahs D'Shana. The Mashiach also, if he sins with an erroneous psak together with the Bezdin, he brings the same as everybody else. He's covered with the carbon of the Bezdin. Ela Amar Rava Ema Hachi Michat Shechatase Shavar Yechidim, one whose carbon is similar to the individuals, Omai Niu Koho, means that we keep on fine tuning this. So Mishachatasa Shaval Yechidim, one whose sin is similar to those of the individual, which is only if he makes a mistake, where he's chayiv if he just simply makes a mistake. Now that's true for everybody, even the Nasi, except for the Kohen Mashiach, because the Kohen Mashiach is only chayiv if he issues an erroneous psak and then makes a mistake. So Mishachatase Shaval Yechidim, or my new call, the members of the congregation, they only bring the garden variety chattas. Even the king only brings a garden variety chattas if they make a mistake. The Kohen is different, because the Kohen only brings if he issues an erroneous psak. Now, Rebbe Eliezer Aimer Hanasi Mevi Soyer. So here, Rebbe Eliezer adds. There's so many details over here. Rebbe Eliezer says that in the case of the carbon oil of Yared, the Nasi brings a soyer. The Nasi brings a he-goat. Amar Reb Yochanan, Loi Amar Rebbe Eliezer Ela B'Tumas Mikdash B'Kedashim. Rebbe Eliezer only said this in the case of Tumas Mikdash Ukedaisa. Why? since by Tumas Mikdash Kedaishav, in other words, there's different types. There's Shvus Bitui. Shvus Bitui is a lav. It's making a false utterance. Tumas Mikdash Kedaishav, although it's a variable chatas, it's an Issachar. And therefore, there, the Nasi, just like by a regular Issachar, he brings a sire, so for Tumas Mikdash Kedaishav, he also brings a sire. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Rabbi Eliezer, Ela b'Tumas Mikdash Kedaishav, Hayil v'nema by Koras by Bekvua. Since it says by Tumas Mikdash Kedaishav, it's a sin of Koras, like by a fixed sin. So just like a Nasi, when it eats chaylev or dam, or sleeps with a sister, he would bring a sire. So here also he brings a sire. Not by Tumas Shvus Bitui. By Shvus Bitui, he would bring a regular carbon oil of a yared. Amra Papa, Hachanami Mistavrid. Yisok Daita Rabbi Eliezer, Al Kulan Kamar. He sang a sar by all of them. Michte, Seir Nasi, Upar Moshiach, B'mekayim Yochid L'chataskai. A sar Nasi, and the par of the Kohen Gadol replace the individual carbon of an individual, replace the seira or the kizba of an individual. So nisnei nami, then it should say that the Mashiach should be mevi par. That for a carbon oil of a yared, the Mashiach should have to bring a par. B'shmias kol bitul b'svosayim. Element of like ketani Mashiach, since it doesn't say Mashiach, shmami no, it's only going at Tumas Mikdash Kedaishav Kai. Now it doesn't say Tumas Mikdash Kedaishav. There's no power by the Kaim Mashiach because the Kaim Mashiach doesn't bring for Tumas Mikdash Kedaishav. The Mashiach parted. The Mashiach over there is parted. Whew! I should pause a minute just to let that sink in. Amalei Rav Huna Breder Rav Nassan Rav Papa Mimai Dilma Rabbi Eliezer Akulahan Kai. Rabbi Eliezer, when he says that the Nasi is chayiv asar for the Tumas Mikdash, for carbon oil of a yared, it's going on all of them. Now, really, it doesn't mean all of them. It doesn't mean all of them because it's interesting that Art School I see here says all three. It can't be all three because the Nasi is not chayiv for Shmias Kel, because he can't give edus, he can't give testimony. But it's chayiv also for Tumas, for Bitui Svasayim. However, Uba Mashiach, Savalok Rabbi Akiva, by Mashiach, he holds like Rabbi Akiva, Dama Mashiach Pata Mikulan. He holds like Rabbi Akiva that the carbon oil of a yared by a Kain Mashiach, he's parted from all of them because he darshans that where he can't, the Kain Gadol, since he cannot bring the Dalei Dalim, he's parted from all of the karbanas of variable chatas. Says the Gemara, Amalei, so he says to him, Rabbi Akiva, mi pater le mi par? Does he exempt the Kohen Gadol from the carbon oil of a yared even from a par? Says the Gemara, no. He only exempts him from the variable chatas, but he is chayiv, holds him chayiv for a bull. Now, what's the raya for that? What's the raya for that? What's the raya for that? But that would mean a special case. That would be if he rules wrong about a variable chatas. If he rules wrong about a variable, that's really a different case. But Rabbi Kiva holds that if he rules wrong about Tumas Mikdash Kedushav, then he would be chayav a par like in other cases where he's chayav a par. Okay. Mesulai Mideh, there's nothing more to speak about. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, one other thought from Rabbi Eliezer. Somehow Barry got kicked off. I don't know how. Who would ever think of kicking off Barry? Barry, we didn't kick you out of the class. Not today. We didn't. I don't know, did you ever see, you weren't in Staten Island, you never saw Barry in a dunce cap. We used to have a corner, but look, if you never saw Barry like a woman, then you've never seen anything.
You have to make a bracha Mishana Abrius.
Yeah, Barry.
Rabbi Weiss, you should know I still have a dunce cap in the corner. Miriam always puts me in the corner.
Okay, nobody knows a husband like the wife. Now, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Weiss, I'm just warming everybody up for the Chumash. This is only the prelude. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Moide Rabbi Eliezer she'ein mevi ashim tali. Rabbi Eliezer is Moide that you don't bring an ashim tali for the aveira of Tumas Mikdash Kedushav. That means that if, let's say, Barry is not sure if he ate kachim b'tumah, or he's not sure if he entered into the Mikdash Baal Tameh, you don't bring an ashim tali. Now, the Pashta says you don't bring an ashim tali except for a chatas kavua, for the garden variety like chalev and dam. Says the Gemara, Tani Tana Kamei Rav Sheshes. Tana, these are ideas that are not discussed in Shas. They're really not discussed. Tani Tana Kamei Rav Sheshes. Ashim Tali ba al Tumas Mikdash Kedusha. That Ashim Tali is bought for a doubt of Tumas Mikdash Kedusha. So Amalei, so Rav Sheshes said to this Tana, and this Tana goes without a name. Tani Tana. Amalei the Amalach Mani. Who said this? You're making a statement. Who said this? Rebbe Eliezer he. The Amar Hoyo V'Nema by Koris Kibikvua. If you remember, Rebbe Eliezer gave the argument that the Nasi brings a Sa'ir by Tumas Mikdash Kedusha because it says Koris like by a Chatas Kavua. So here, this Tana wants to say the same thing, that there's an Ashim Tali, since it says by Tumas Mikdash Kedusha, a Koris like by Kavua. So, by Koris Kibikvua, Maisi Nasi Saraleh, says the Gemara. Therefore, he wants to say that since it says Koris, there's also an Ashim Tali. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan Moide Rabbi Eliezer Shein Mevi Ashim Tali. The Rabbi Eliezer says that you don't bring an Ashim Tali. Says, well, this is kasha, this is taka, difficult. Because Einakonami, according to Rabbi Eliezer's reasoning, that just like the Nasi brings a sar because it says Koris, and therefore it's equated to the Chatas Kavua, it should also have an Ashim Tali. But Rabbi Eliezer said that there is no Ashim Tali. So he said that taka, that's a difficulty. Hanur Allah Hayrekay Mashiach. Hanur Allah Hayrekay Mashiach. Hanur Allah Hayrekay Mashiach. Well,
not kasha.
Kasha, when the Gemara says kasha, it means they have somewhat of an answer, but not good enough to say. Not a tiyufta. The reason why it's not a tiyufta is because we cannot resolve what we do with that reason. Why wouldn't that reason work for Hashem Tali too?
You got a Bryce against Rabbi Yochanan.
What?
You got a Bryce against Rabbi Yochanan.
No, this is not a state.
Tani Tana is somebody who knew Bryces.
Right.
So he's called a Bryce that you are chayav for Asham Tala, for Thomas Mikdash, for Kadesh. The Yochanan said Rabbi Eliezer says you're not, but you've got a Bryce against him.
The Bryce just said that Asham Tali comes on Thomas Mikdash. It doesn't say who said it. So he has it in the guess that Rabbi Eliezer said. Now, okay, so now we're going to have the Chumash here.